genetic fingerprint with the specific formulation that works for you and not for your neighbor. Whereas today's medicine is all about population. If you're part of the X%, then this works for you. This gentleman who was talking about his unusual diseases, there is an entire body called orphan drugs that goes hand in hand with that. These drugs, even if you formulate it, they don't have a big population to address with. So how do you resolve the difference between the R&D cost on the one side and the affordability of the other side? Challenges with technology that can in fact be bridged. This is one scenario of yourself. How many of you have got a Fitbit or something like that right now in your pocket or on your body? 10–15%. This is increasingly the case, where you want to understand your own body and its dynamics. Because when you go to the doctor looks at you as a sample of 1 in a population of n. Whereas when you look at yourself, you're a sample of 1 in a population of 1. I assure you, your ability to exactly represent what's going on with you is limited by your language capabilities. Now, if you had biosensors, you could exchange that data. It has nothing to do with your capabilities to express yourself. Far better way of representing your current state of health to your caregiver. Now, what he does with it, that's a different question altogether. Okay? So you think about all of this. This is a perfect storm situation. Global demographics, never been better for business. It's exploded, wonderful thing. Technology, never been more accessible. You can think of an idea and express it either algorithmically or with computational power, perhaps even on your cell phone, because you've got more power in your pocket than the supercomputer that put the first man on the moon. Right now, right here today. And global health and wellness, massive movement in that area from everywhere in the world. So, the question is, what are you going to do about it? Show of hands. I just got the signal and the hook saying you're done. How many of you learned one thing new today? Thank you. This quote up there is from the chairman, founder of the other club. I was recently in London. Part of my job is to travel. And I had dinner at the Savoy, which is a story hotel, in a room where the other club meets. And I asked who it was that said this, because this is what I was introduced to. And I was told that the other club was created by an innovator. He happened to be very desirous of getting into the club, called the Gentleman's Club. He went there and applied. And they looked at him and said, "You go away." He said, "The hell with you guys, I'm going to create the other club." So he created the other club. And it became the spot for everybody to go to, because it was none other than Winston Churchill. And if you think of force multipliers in the world, this man is one of the few that I look up to and say, he was a force multiplier. Now, the very last thing that I ask of you, ladies and gentlemen, if you really enjoyed this, is I, as I was told, could use this for a small club. I'm a force multiplier for the American Red Cross. I've pledged this year, as a member of the board, to raise money for the Red Cross and to match it dollar for dollar, up to $3,500. So if all of you would care to donate $10 to the American Red Cross, I would be very grateful and would be happy to match it. All you have to do is pick up your cell phone and look for Donate to American Red Cross. It will give you a small app, and in 5 minutes you can do your bit. Thank you very much. Happy to see you.
So if there are questions?
Yeah.
I'm Vikas Bhatia. I'm about 95. This is less of a question
more of a thought that got stirred by your presentation, but I would be curious to hear your reaction to it. You started the question with, hey, what is growth connote to us? And then you talked about the $70 trillion world economy, of which 4.3 trillion is on the internet. So the vision that's flashing to me is that, okay, so there's the digital world, which is 4.3 trillion, so let's say roughly 6 or 7% of the world economy. And the model that we are in is sort of unchecked, unfettered, growth or die kind of a world. So it's easy to imagine that at some point we are saying, hey, look, the entire world economy is on the internet. In real life, because I was thinking about it, the only unlimited growth model that looks like is cancer. So, like, did what you just described, or how you see this, is a description of the technological singularity, where sort of the human consciousness is downloaded into a digital device.
I don't know what the question is. If you care to clarify it for me, I might be able to provide an answer.
So what is a world in which there is unchecked growth or unfettered growth look like, especially as technology is the thing that is growing?
That's a matter of opinion, first of all. It could be dystopian if it's all technology. And if indeed technology were to gain a sense of consciousness, you could have a Terminator world going on, right? But truth of the matter is, there will always be both digital and analog. There will be growth in both. Think about it. I mean, you and I, we don't care about haircuts, but you can't get a haircut on the internet, right? But we both wear shoes, and to get a shoe shine, you still have to make it a physical activity. So there are many things that go on in the broader economy that are truly physical in nature and can never find a digital replacement. But those things that can, in fact, lead to digitization will find a path to digitization because, in my opinion, the cost of moving an electron is 2,000th the cost of moving an atom. Literally the physics of it. 1/836. Figure it out, right? That movement cannot be stopped because it can be digitized at that low of a barrier. It will get digitized. It's just a matter of finding talent at the other end to digitize it. But that doesn't mean that everything can be digitized. So that's what I would do. So.
Should I introduce myself again? No? Okay. So you talked about GTL, global top-level domains, and the shift that's happening on global top-level domain as a network effect. And the question was specific to GTLD. Some of the companies think that they need to reject their systems to adopt or adapt the post-dot things, and that'll be a huge, way bigger than Y2K. And frankly, most of the companies don't even know what's going to get them. Your thoughts on that and the impact it will have on the economy? Obviously, it will generate millions of jobs out there. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. Most systems in the world were written for 3 alpha to the right of the dot, because .com, .net, .gov, .edu, all of them were 3. .info became 4, .museum became 6, but not many people adopted .museum. They didn't care about it, so it was not a mandate, if you will. As more and more of these new names are getting introduced to the right of the dot, the question that Azira Singh is asking is, so how will systems around the world cope with the fact that now it could be anything to the right of the dot? We have started a massive campaign from ICANN on a global basis called Universal Acceptance to address precisely this. I'm happy to say that Google, where we are talking, is one of the earliest adopters of universal acceptance. And there are other companies that are also force multipliers in their own right, who have software that is used by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, who are also beginning to understand the power of what we are doing, the innovation that we've brought forth. And they're adopting the guidelines of universal acceptance to pass through or to process as the need be, whatever is to the right of the dot. Now, if you think of Y2K, it took about 7 years for the Y2K problem to be fully understood and fully resolved. This is a problem that is at least twice, if not more, bigger in dimension. So to expect something of this dimension to be addressed in a shorter period of time, the rate limiting factor is the human factor, not the computational factor. So it'll take people time to understand what this means. Those companies that are likely to be the wholesalers or retailers of these names to the right will be the first ones to adopt universal acceptance. And to the extent that we have companies like Microsoft and Google and Amazon already in the fray, looking for names to the right, they will likely be the force multipliers who will pass this along as a benefit for the rest of us who use their services. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Sir.
Yeah, by way of introduction, I'm Sheikh Sood. I'm on the about 2003. Two questions. Firstly, could you clarify how you arrived at the 4.5 trillion number for the internet? I think we had some PPP statistics. The second, we talked a lot about force multipliers here, but one of the challenges of the growth of the internet has been that if you look at it for the next 5, 10, 15 years, whether it's industrial espionage, corporate espionage, or country-level warfare beyond on the internet. We've seen examples of that in several different instances. What's the ICANN view on that, and what are different institutions doing?
Thank you. First of all, the 4.3 trillion number is not my number. It's the number that gets reported out every year. You can look for these numbers. There are a variety of places where you can look for good data on this kind of a statistic. The WTO itself is a brilliant place to do this kind of research. As one example, when we look at numbers, we triangulate our numbers from multiple different sources. So when I put up these numbers, there will be at least one that's attributed and a couple others that I will research. It's all available on the internet. All you got to do is Google for the terms that you're looking for. Insofar as world wars are concerned, conceptually you're right. More and more of the wars that are being fought are on the electronic frontier and less on the physical frontier. We don't have a position on that. We are responsible for technology, not the use of technology. The interpretation of technologies and the use that it gets put to is outside of our domain. And frankly, it is something that is led by people who either want to do good with it or do evil with it. And that is true of every technology that has come along. If you look back in the history of time and think of any technology, the technology that put a man on the moon is the same technology that puts a bomb in your backyard. So it's the use of technology, and we are not in a position to say this is the only use that you can put it to. So ICANN officially does not have a position on e-wars.
All right.
Question here. Arjun Batra, IIM Calcutta, 1967. So I've got a comment and a question. You said about the physical activity. I think the shoes for the ladies are probably going to be a physical activity on the internet pretty soon with the 3D printing. Haircut might be a little bit farther away for those who need it. I don't need one, so it doesn't really matter. So regarding the question, you talked about Africa being a green field, and we've seen a lot written about it. But you also said that you got to find the people who can pay you. Is Africa there to pay for much?
It's a very good question. You know, Africa is rich in ways that would surprise you. I'm sure many of you have read the book, There's Money to Be Made at the Bottom of the Pyramid. You've probably listened to CPA when he was alive and talking about the concepts of wealth at the bottom of the pyramid. There is enormous wealth at the bottom of the pyramid. Look, demand is built as a function of awareness. As media becomes broader in its ability to address larger population segments in some of the more remote corners of the earth, awareness builds, leading to the desire, which in turn leads to demand. So once you have demand, the propensity to invest in satisfying that demand is a human reaction to that demand. What you saw there in the form of stats for mobile telephony being adopted ever faster, regardless of the GDP of nations, is reflective of that very phenomenon. That dynamic is being seen. We have enough data to look at and glean intelligence out of it, saying, this is happening. It's not a, it will happen, it is already happening. So yes, there is wealth in Africa if you have the right offering. The price point is something that has to be figured out. M-Pesa, for instance, is an extremely easy to not only use, but also afford technology, on the back of which millions of dollars are being made. So the question is that the next Apple, or is that the next $100 million exit? Well, you know, that depends on your desire.
Right.
Thank you so much, Ash. I can very safely say that all of us in this room learned not just one, but many interesting and insightful insights from your speech today. Thank you so much. I now invite Ashima to and Ashima will tell you where to stand and how to get your picture taken. No worries on that front.
We want to make sure, since this is all about the network,
Yep.
we get all the pictures to post all the content. But thank you very much. And also,
so we will now break for lunch. We are a little bit behind, so we request you